Well, look who's here. Good morning to you. Terry Hansen here. Welcome back once again on Traveling with Terry on this beautiful Friday morning. Hope you had a great week. Today, you and I, on my way from my home to the office, we need to talk a little bit about taking responsibility for the outcomes and results in your business. So I've got a couple of two stories to share with you, and one historical and one that kind of popped up yesterday that taught me a pretty important lesson that I am really paying attention to, and I wanted to share those insights with you about basically, again, the punchline is taking responsibility for the outcomes and the results that we're seeing in business, in our businesses. So story number one deals with Oliver Wendell Holmes. Does that name sound familiar to you? Oliver Wendell Holmes, back in the mid 1800s, about 1840 or so, he was a physician from Boston, Massachusetts. And during that time, he began to research and study a devastating fever that was ravaging Europe, called puerperal fever. Puerperal fever, kind of a funny name. But it was known as a pretty devastating scourge that would affect pregnant mothers 3 days after they would deliver their baby. Their babies in the hospitals, they would develop this severe fever and then die. And doctors and physicians were pretty perplexed, and it had been something that had been going on for several years, and no one knew what was causing it. No one knew how to fix it, and they were everybody was really stumped, and they had different kinds of theories and hypotheses. Sorry about the sunshiny light there. Anyway, lots of theories were abounding, and Oliver Wendell Holmes saw this, and he began studying it and reflecting on what was causing this. And what he discovered was the medical physicians would point their fingers in all sorts of different directions. They would talk about food, or talk about water, or talk about all sorts of different things. And what Oliver Wendell Holmes discovered is that when this puerperal fever was ultimately a bacterial infection that was basically a urinary tract infection, that the doctors would spread from patient to patient as they would go and deliver a baby, and then 3 days later, this mother would get sick and pass away. The doctors would do an autopsy on the body and try to figure out what she died of, etc., and then later on go and deliver a baby. And they were carrying the bacterial infection on their surgical instruments and on their unwashed hands. And so that's what Oliver Wendell Holmes discovered. And he published a paper in 1842 that kind of lit the medical community up. And they were like, well, that's preposterous. It's not our fault. Excuse me. It's not our fault. It's got to be the water. It's got to be food. It's got to be other things. It's got to be, excuse me, something in the air, etc. So the doctors were kind of offended, frankly, that he would insinuate that they were the ones that were killing these mothers but whatnot. But his research and his information years later led to some other important studies that that validated what he first proposed. And it really was he was pretty critical in establishing the importance of sanitation and having sterilized surgical instruments and washing hands, after every time working with patients and that sort of thing. And but his findings really highlighted this key principle. Sometimes you and I are part of or the main cause of the problems that we see in the business. And that's kind of a sour, tough message, but sometimes that is the case. I'll share a personal experience that I had just yesterday. I was driving to another city where my wife is setting up a craft fair. I went to go help her set up a craft fair, and during that, I had a long conversation with one of the business partners at Arcane Marketing about some feedback that he had received from a couple of the clients that we work with. Now, as you remember, I ran my own marketing consulting and sales training company for, the better part of 15 years. And just last November, 5 months ago or so, my business was acquired by Arcane Marketing, and I've joined their team, joined their executive team to help out. And I currently serve as the production manager inside the company, and it's been a great journey and a great experience. Let's see if that's any better there. Anyway, but in the several months ago, as I was working pretty one-on-one with many of the clients as an account manager, in essence, and servicing them that way, there was a couple of experiences that apparently didn't go too well. And one of the founders at Arcane shared some feedback. He was visiting with some of these clients, and one of the clients made some comments like this. They said basically something like, they said that they had been with, Arcane Marketing for several years, had been very happy and very pleased with the quality of the work and et cetera. But they felt like a few months ago that things started heading downhill. And one of the founders asked the question, well, tell me why, what happened? And they said, well, ever since Terry started working with us, we really like Terry. His ideas are really good, and we appreciate him. He's good to work with, but it just feels like he doesn't listen to us, and he's kind of pushing his agenda, his ideas, his recommendations, rather than listening to us and focusing on what we want. And anyway, one of the founders, shared that feedback with me, and that really took me back. That was sour medicine to hear. And I thought, man, I'm the cause of the problem. Dang it! And it made me feel really bad. And then he shared a second one from a separate incident. A second client had called him up directly and had said, "Hey, how's everything going?" And blah blah blah. Here's how our campaigns are running. Things are going pretty good. But, I've got a question. It seems like when I talk with Terry, it seems like when I ask questions, he doesn't really answer them specifically. He kind of skirts around the issue or talks about, answers the question indirectly, or it's not very clear. And they ask the question, is he the right guy for working with me in my business? And man, that hurt. That sort of feedback just stings. I pride myself in being a good communicator, at being a good listener, at being consultative and working well with clients. I've worked with clients for a long time, and to get that sort of feedback, oh man, that just stings, hurts. But it really made me realize that if clients are not getting the results that they want in business, or if there's certain problems that our clients are experiencing, maybe it's because you and I are doing something or not doing something that we should or shouldn't. There are, in the religious world, there's things called the sins of commission, things that we commit, things that we do that are wrong, right? And then there's sins of omission, things that we should do but that we don't do, and that sort of thing. But in business, guess what? There's things that we do, that we commit, that we do that are not good. And there's things that we leave undone or don't do, omit to do, that we should be doing, that really cause problems. So one of the lessons that I'm learning right now is that you and I, as leaders, as salespeople, as marketers, as business owners and entrepreneurs, managers of any kind, over any department in our companies, if there are problems and issues and challenges with our customers, or with our employees, or with our processes, or with various functions inside the business, one of the best questions I think we can ask ourselves is this: what am I doing right now that's contributing to the problem? Or what am I not doing right now that is contributing to the problem? And maybe a third question is what role do I play in solving this problem? It's easy for us inside of our companies to hear about a problem or an issue or a challenge and to point our fingers at other people and say, well, if this process were followed better, then things would go better. Or if this person would do this differently, then this wouldn't happen. Or if we have a tendency sometimes as humans to point our finger at other people or at other things and cast the blame, cast the responsibility there. And I want to just on this beautiful Friday morning, give a shout out and make a recommendation that you and I not do that. Our first maneuver, our first instinct, our first gut move that we make is to ask those 3 questions. What am I currently doing that's contributing to this problem? Number 2, what am I not doing that is contributing to this problem? And number 3 is what role do I play or what role do I play in solving this problem? And ultimately, when you and I take ownership, take responsibility, we feel responsible and ownership for the problems inside of our companies, regardless if they're with our employees. I think you and I will do a much, much better job at contributing to the effort of preventing problems, but also to solving problems. It was sour medicine yesterday when I got that feedback, and it made me realize there are some habits that I've carried over as a consultant over the last 15 years that have helped me in my consulting business become very, very successful. When businesses come to me and say, what do I need to do? What do we need to fix? Can you help me with this? When I say yes, let's talk about it and hear their situation. And then I make these suggestions and recommendations to them about things that they need to do. That's appropriate for a consulting business. But as an agency, when people come to us and say, hey, I've got this issue, challenge, and problem, can you take care of this for me? In essence, they're delegating that responsibility to us. And so for me to say, hey, we'll do all these services for you, but here's the things that you need to do, etc. Maybe that wasn't well received. Maybe I wasn't listening as well as I could. Maybe I was pushing my ideas and my recommendations and my suggestions instead of being a little bit more of an order taker and listening to what they need and improving the services that we're providing to them. So sour lesson, bitter medicine to take. Hate it. That sort of negative, sour feedback is always a hard pill to swallow, but so good, so helpful, so vital, so important. If you and I are going to get better, or if we want our businesses to get better, we need to be better. If we want our sales to be better, we need to be better. If we want our revenue, our productivity, our profitability, our processes to change, you and I personally need to change. And so let's start instead of pointing the finger at other things out there, let's just turn that right around and let's start pointing that back at ourselves. What am I doing that's contributing to this problem? What am I not doing right now that's contributing to the problem? What role do I play in helping fix this problem itself? So anyway, love you guys. Sour medicine. But if you got some problems in the business right now, ask yourself those 3 questions. You won't like the answer. I promise you won't like the answer, but it's probably true. So take the sour medicine. Take the sour medicine and get some better results. Have a great rest of the day. Keep up the good work. Happy Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. And look forward to being back with you once again on Traveling with Terry next week. Take good care. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for watching. Did you know every company out there has what we call digital marketing blind spots? These are simple, hidden opportunities for growing and improving your marketing that most of the time people miss. Go to www.arcanemarketing.com and take advantage of our Rise and Ignite digital marketing analysis. It's 100% free to get fresh new insights and ideas to make what you're already doing that much better in 2021.